Good evening. Good evening. Hello there. Hi, my name's Grace Famoriyo, and welcome to another episode of Managing Challenging Times. It's great to have you on board. As you know, I'm passionate around helping people experience wellness, especially emotionally and mentally. I'm also passionate about helping people experience resilience. And what we're going to be talking about today is about how to handle what I call unscripted moments. Okay, so when I talk about unscripted moments, I'm talking about those situations that kind of like happen and we're like, whoa, where did that come from? Okay, so that's basically what I'm going to be talking about today. And I think, all of us, especially in today's climate, we can all relate to the whole COVID virus happening and that basically becoming like an unscripted moment for a lot of us because, we didn't plan for it. And unfortunately, it has invaded our lives. And what tends to happen, just like any other unscripted moment, is they come into our worlds and sometimes, like a tsunami, kind of turn it upside down. And so we end up, having to deal with the fallout of what I call unscripted moments. Now, perhaps you've experienced something like that before. Maybe you've had situations where, you woke up one morning and you had you had to go to the hospital and had a bad report, or perhaps you got to work and, you've been made redundant. There's a whole raft of other things that could have been happening. By the way, thank you everybody who's watching us. Thank you so much for joining in. Feel free to share your comments. This is quite interactive, so by all means, dive in. So as I was saying, there's a number of us who, for whatever reason or the other, we wake up one day, get bad news, have to face a situation that we didn't plan for. And so these unscripted moments come and they invade our lives and we basically have to do something about it. We can't just say, well, I'm just going to roll over and play dead, because most of the times we have to make certain decisions. And so today I'm going to be talking about 3 things that you can actually do even whilst going through the challenging time, or I will call it for today's purpose, unscripted life moments. So any situation where you might have felt, life just happened and you're like, oh, you want to pull your hair out. Okay. Now, in addition to that, as you know, these formats are being, quite interactive. So by all means, throw in your questions, say a hello. I'm having to give anybody a shout out, whatever it is, let's just make this interactive. And it's all about supporting you as a person get through this particular time. Now, you probably know that one of the things that I do, just a little bit by myself, I'm an author, a speaker, a coach, and I've been working with people in particular for the last, without showing my age, roughly around 25 years now, in one shape or the other, mentoring women, coaching, running organizations, non-profits, you name it, coaching, done it. Okay. I also have written a number of books, and some of the, things that we're going to be talking about today is from, Bounce Back, which I have to say, I actually wrote this when I was going through an unscripted moment of my own, going through life and having to, deal with certain situations. And, after looking at my own personal life, as well as the people around me, and, other people who I consider, my bounce back heroes, people who seem to be able to triumphant even after going through really difficult times. I call them like my little, my heroes, and I salute them all. So, it's about trying to find strategies, tips, and, principles to support us so we can get through those times. And that's what we're going to be looking here at today. So first thing first, I just want to start off with reading just a quote from the book Bounce Back. And basically, I love, in fact, the 2 foundational principles. Most of you who've worked with me before know that one of the key things I like to do, especially as a coach, is helping you making a mental shift. Okay, so changing the mindsets, helping you develop the right attitudes, and also the right belief systems. And some of the ways I do that is through sharing principles, that I live by, biblical principles that I've gleaned from other great mentors, leaders, coaches, whatever. So those are the kind of thing. That's how I kind of like to, help people in terms of changing, because without changing mindsets and your attitudes and your belief systems, those two underpin your behavior. So sometimes when we're not getting the results we want, I always get, people, especially people I'm working with, to think about what are my attitudes and what are my belief systems and how is that contributing to the situation that we're facing right now. So 2 principles I want you to have at the back of your mind when we are looking at this whole concept of managing challenging times and how to deal with unscripted life moments. And I'm going to tell you a story of one of my own unscripted life moments that just kind of like, woo, basically. Anyway, but before we do that, principle number 1 and fact number 1 that I want you to understand, and for anyone who's got the book, it's in the preface section. Fact number 1, and this is a powerful thing that I want everyone who's watching or who will be watching this in the future to keep in mind, that regardless of the current climate, regardless of the situations that we're facing, regardless of what you may have faced, regardless of all of that, one thing I need you to understand is this one simple fact. In fact, it's 2 facts, but the first one is life's traumas, adversities needn't destroy us. Okay? Life's adversities and traumas needn't destroy us. Now, it's up to us when we're going through different situations and challenges. It's up to us. We determine the outcome. Now, I do get that, with some things that, we're powerless. We can't change it. We can't change the weather. We may not necessarily be able to change some things, but there are some things within your power that you have the ability to change. And one of them is actually your mindsets and your determination and how you approach the situation that you're actually facing. Now, I love this. I always look for inspirational people. When I'm going through situations myself, or I know clients who are going through the same thing, I'm looking for inspiration. So I sometimes, because I'm a woman of faith, I look at my Bible. I look at other inspirational figures both within the faith context and in the secular world. I'm looking everywhere for anybody who I can glean any form of principle or tip or secret to help me in what I'm currently going through. And I adopt that mindset regardless of what I'm doing. So remember, fact number 1 is this: life's traumas and adversities needn't destroy you. Now, I love this. I came across a story when I was trying to put this book together, Bounce Back, and I came across Sir Terry Waite's story. Now, I don't know if you remember Sir Terry Waite, but he was a gentleman who was held hostage for 1,760 days in Beirut before he was released in November 1991. Now, that's a long time, for somebody doing the kind of work that he was doing and, being held hostage in isolation. And you know what? He made a powerful statement when he came out. This is what he said. He was doing an interview on a radio, and I heard this. His quote. He says, "Suffering is always difficult, but it needn't destroy. Very often, it can be turned around so that you can make something creative out of it. If you look back into history, you will find that many great acts of creativity came out of suffering." Now that's powerful. Imagine somebody saying, despite the fact that they were held hostage for all that time, and they went through all the things that they went through. And if you read his story, it's like, oh my gosh, how does anyone come out of that, without, feeling, or getting funny or whatever. But I love what he said. He basically said, if you look back into history, you will find that many great acts of creativity came out of suffering. Now, my question to you is this: with all what's going on around us here, what kind of creativity can you start to make? Now, some of you may know this, okay? I also I lead a women's movement called Multiple Income Women, because I am sold out on us using our gifts, our talents, our expertise, our life experiences, and a shed load more to create multiple incomes, to help ourselves become more financially independent, to help our families, to support our partners. But it's about using what I call your know-how. Now, this gentleman is saying here, so Terry Waite, he's actually saying that, if we look back, in terms of history, that people who have gone to create great stuff, a number of them started out of adversity. Now, that's something to think about. If adversity potentially is a proponent for us to be able to create things, that is, that's saying something here. So I think, there's a trick that I really don't want you to miss during this season here. And as I said, I've said this in the past, and I know that we are going through a situation where none of us have, and these days are going to go in the history books, because we've never definitely not in my lifetime, out of a wartime, we're having to face the situation we're facing. But I still believe that something positive can come out of all of this, and we're seeing it in the media anyway. People come out with creativity to help create new personal protective equipment, and just so much. I mean, there was a story, I think there was an 8 or 9-year-old girl who was making protective equipment for her local hospital. Now that's phenomenal. She was at home and she decided to use her laser her 3D printer to create something. Now, for me, that's a prime example of how we can actually flip this, our life situations, or what I'm calling our unscripted moments, flip it on its head and make something good come out of it. So that was fact number 1, which basically says life's traumas and adversities needn't destroy you. Now, the second thing that I wanted to share here, and this is a thing, as you know, I'm a woman of faith, and I am not ashamed of my faith. It's my faith has been the thing that's kept my boat afloat, especially when life has happened, and I'm sort of like, I don't know what to do, help. My faith has really helped me. And after scouring through the Bible, I am convinced of this fact number 2. Fact number 2 is this, and I'm sure you know it, but it's a reminder just in case you don't know it. God can make something positive out of what seems negative. I'll say that again. Now, God can make something positive out of something that seems negative. Now, our world is a proof of that today. We don't need to look too far to see, how, positive things come out of even what seems to be like challenging or struggling times. Now, I'm really, I love the Bible, okay? And I always try and find a quote for whatever season or situation that I'm facing. Now, it says in Romans 8:28, now I'm sure you know this already, but I just wanted to share it with you anyway. It basically says that, as we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and who are called according to his purposes for them. That's the New Living Translation. Now, they're basically saying he kind of works it all out. Now, for me personally, sometimes I'm like, when I'm having some of my moments and I'm speaking to Father, I'm like, is there no other way that you can make something positive come out? I mean, can't you just spring it forth, and can't you just let it happen anyway? But that's a separate topic for another day, okay? So as I say, the fact number 2 is that God can make something positive come out of something negative. Now, I've shared in previous episodes, if you're interested, if you go on Gladys Famoriyo, my Facebook page, this particular page that you're actually looking at, and look at the videos tab or the live tab, you'll see some other videos that I've done in this whole series. And in number 1, and the first one I did, and the first one in particular, I shared a number of stories. In fact, that's what Bounce Back is all about. It's about inspiring us to go for it and keep pressing on, regardless of the situations that we're facing. Period. That's basically it. And I wanted to highlight the stories of not just people in the Bible, because sometimes we can, they're in the Bible, they're so far removed, whatever. We can say like they had like superhero tendencies, or maybe they had bones made of steel. But let's put that aside. I wanted to actually showcase the lives of people who, like you and me, were going through different things. But again, they did two things based on the two facts that I've shared earlier. The facts. Fact number one, just in case you're joining us. Okay, fact number one is life traumas and adversities needn't destroy us, period. Okay, and fact number two is God can make something positive come out of what seems negative. Now, I'm hoping that that's put a foundation in place for you here. Remember, this session is around changing attitudes, belief systems, which ultimately will change our behaviors. And it's around how we see unscripted moments or challenging life situations. Now, for some people, I'm sure you've all heard about this, about seeing the cup half empty or half full. You know, when you're going through a trying time, do you see yourself as a victim or do you see yourself as a victor? Now, I do understand that in our society and in the media, you know, sometimes you may find yourself being labeled as a victim, but you don't have to adopt, you know, the mindset and the mantra of somebody like that. You can say, I may be down, but I ain't out. I am coming back victoriously. That's a choice, and that's a mindset, and that's an attitude that you can develop regardless of what you're facing. So let's delve in today. So what can you start to do to flip adversity on its head? What can you start to do to make something positive come out of something that seems not negative at the moment? And what can you start to do to make sure that life's unscripted moments doesn't, you know, traumatize us to an extent whereby we're just stuck and immobile and not able to move forward? Or how can we make sure that it doesn't destroy us? Now, I'm talking within the context of the current climate that we're facing here, where we're all on lockdown. However, the principles are still applicable regardless of what it is that you're facing. Okay, so let's see what we can do. So now you've all heard the quote around what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Now, if you take a moment to think about that, the reality is it's actually true. You know, again, it's a mindset. It's you've just determined that, you know, and I love there's a scripture in the Bible that says, though I fall, I will arise, you know, and it's things like that that I kind of hold on to, even when life seems to be going very, just, you know, going dodgy. Now, I remember many years ago, just wanted to share one of my own unscripted moments. I remember many years ago, I was working from home at the time, and my sister was living with me, my late sister. Some of you may know Debbie, who passed away 2 years ago. Another unscripted moment. But anyway, yeah, so I remember she just left for work. And, you know, I had a knock on the door and I thought, oh, okay, maybe she forgot her keys. She forgot something. But I had somebody come and knock on the door. And it turned out to be a neighbor. And the neighbor basically said, you know, I've just witnessed a really horrific accident with your sister. I know it's your sister because it was her car involved in the accident. I know that the police are coming to give you bad news. And so I just want to do the right thing by you and just come and sit with you until they came. Now, I mean, I can go on with that story and how, you know, the struggles, you know, my sister in particular experienced as a result of that experience. That in itself is a book, you know, and I wish, you know, she was here to tell her story, but may her soul rest in peace. Debs, you're missed. Okay, but, you know, for me, going back to that scenario here, for me, that was a classic example of an unscripted moment. Now, we'd both gotten up. I was working from home. She'd gone up and gone to work. And all of a sudden, life happened. So what do? Do we kind of give up? Do we kind of lose hope? You know, and I just want to, you know, celebrate my sister, one of the greatest bounce back heroes. I'm going to not cry here. You know, one of the greatest bounce back heroes there was, because Debbie kept bouncing back time and time again. And, you know, her life is just, you know, she left a phenomenal legacy around resilience and coming back strong. So, going back to that, and I remember actually going back to that story when that neighbor came to me and told me, what had happened. You know what I said to him? I said, you know what? I don't know where it came from, but I just said, you know what? My sister is not dead. Take me to her right now. That was my statement. And you know what? Words are powerful. Words are powerful. Just for anybody who's watching here, who kind of, maybe you kind of use words in a kind of like a flippant way. Because, for example, I'd hear people say, "Oh, you mad?" I would do that if I was you. And I'm like, first thing I always do is when people say stupid things like that, I say, no, I am not mad, because I need my faculties, right? I am not mad. So I'm really a proponent about words that people use, because words are really powerful. And I remember when the neighbor came and gave me the news about my sister saying that she'd passed away in an accident nearly, I can't remember, it must be like 20 years ago. I said, no, my sister is not dead. She is alive. Take me to her. And so for me, when I'm going through challenging situations, one of the things I try and do is, and I still do this till today, is I change the atmosphere of my world with my words. And so all around the house, and I've started doing this even more so. I used to just have journals where I read from, but now I place affirmative, positive statements, both biblical and non-biblical. Some I made myself, some I taken from other people, but I surround my whole world with powerful, positive statements, because I know that even though an unscripted moment may come along, I am going to beat this, because you know what? I'm learning to fortify myself with powerful, positive words. And words are powerful. Words shape our worlds, whether you believe it or not. They shape our worlds. I mean, I'm sure you've heard, this. If you say you think you can do something, guess what? The chances are you're going to do it. If you think, oh no, I can't do that because blah, 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 guess what? You ain't going to do it, because you've already prophesied, you've already declared to yourself it's not going to happen. So there's a word in there for anybody who's watching. Be careful on the words you say, and be careful on the words you receive from other people, and just like a bull, I'm happy to bat any negative words back to people and say, I'm not having that. But as I was saying, so let's look at 3 strategies that we can adopt, and this is something I use for myself. This is something I teach in my conferences. This is something I share with people time and time again. So let's look at what we can do to help us flip this climate on its head and make something powerful come out of it regardless. Okay, something powerful. Now, as I said, I keep going back to watch the very first one I did in this series, because I shared a powerful story, in fact 2 powerful stories. One was about a lady called Ruth, and the other one was about a young girl called Griselda. Now go and find those videos, but I'll share the link afterwards. Find the videos. They will inspire you to no end on how the people have decided they're going to make something positive come out of something that just seems so dark, so gloomy, and so horrible. Okay, so 3 strategies. Let me focus it. 3 strategies to help you flip this climate on its head. Now, principle number 1 is use this season as a catalyst for positive change. Now, what did I say? Use this season as a catalyst for positive change. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm stuck at home. I can't get to work. Yeah, we've got so many reasons why we can say X, Y, Z. But I'm going to set you a challenge. Now, Coach Grace is coming out here now. I am going to set you a challenge. I want you to think of just one thing that you can do that will be a positive change in your life in this whole season. One thing. Okay, you might be thinking, oh, I don't know what I can do. Yes, you can. You can think of something positive. I mean, we've all seen that gentleman, that elderly gentleman, that with that word always gets me, but that gentleman, Colonel Tom, who's recently been promoted, he walks with a Zimmer frame, right? And he decided he wanted to raise, I think he started with £1,000, for the NHS. And he was going to do that by doing 100 lengths using his Zimmer frame in his garden, up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, we all know in the media, right? We all know how much he raised. In fact, I lost track. I think the last time I checked it was 28 million, but I'm sure it's probably surpassed that right now. That's one positive change one person decided to make out of this whole climate. So I'm going back to you. What are you going to do? One positive change. Now, am I saying go and raise money for the NHS? No, but you might want to. Am I saying, but there are so many things you can do. For example, you can set goals for yourself. You can say, set healthier goals. So, for example, you might want to perhaps use this time to fulfill a lifelong goal. Some people, maybe they've been, maybe you're furloughed, so you're not at work. You've been struggling with a business plan for a long time, of an idea that you've been ruminating on for years. And trust me, as a coach, I meet people who've been sitting on a dream or a goal for like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And I'm like, seriously? Come on. We need that thing that you have. We want it. I need it. So please get with a program and do something about it. So it might be a lifelong goal that you've had. Maybe you want to learn how to do something, It could be anything. It could be maybe you have a goal. You might want to clear out your house. You might want to plant something in your garden if you have it, or want to plant a box, or paint, or knit. It could be something creative. It could be something to upskill you professionally or personally. You can see where I'm going here. There is so much to do. You can... I can keep going on here, but I think you get the gist here now. There is so much that you can do. Now, here's a classic one. I get this all the time because, hey, I'm a writer. I publish my own books. I'm also a publisher with an agency that helps people write, publish, and sell their books. So, again, if you need that support, send me a message. But here's what I hear time and time again. Oh, I want to write a book. I'm like, fantastic. Great stuff. Okay, well, write it then. And guess what? I meet them 5 years later. So where's the book? And I get that sheepish look in their faces, and I know it hasn't happened. And I say to people, you know what? Until you put pen to paper or take action of any kind, it just becomes a wish, a dream, a hope. Nothing happens as a result of it. So perhaps you've been sitting on a book idea. Why not use this time? Now, again, if you're struggling, you don't even know where to start, Coach Grace is in the house. Send me a message and I promise I will get back to you. I've got support. You don't have to struggle alone. But going back to what we're saying, I'm saying use this season as a catalyst for positive change in your life. You might even think about, actually, my relationships. Are there some relationships I need to go back to? Are there some relationships I need to reassess? What's going on there? So it's an opportunity to do something positive. We don't have to just sit and think, woe is me. We can do something about it. So, you can also set healthier goals. So, it's you have to get motivated though, because if you're used to someone like me who's like, oh, sunshine, I want to go do my 30, 40, 50 mile cycling. And I'm stuck at home faced with my spin bike. And it takes a little bit more motivation to get on that bike indoors. It's like, it's not the same. But you know what? Remember we talked about mind shifts and mindsets, right? Okay, so you might want to set healthier goals. And to be honest, it doesn't take much. There's so much on YouTube. You can just jump in jacks for 10 minutes would do you good. Doing the plank for a few minutes will do you good. So I'm saying put something in place. Hey, GK, great to have you on board. Okay, and he says, you too right. You know what it is, right? There's been times where, because I've got my vitality, I have to monitor my steps. Sometimes you can find me late at night, in my front room going round and round and round and round and round, just trying to make my points for the day or my steps for the day. You know what? There's no excuse. There is no excuse. And regardless of what state you are in physically, there are resources, there are exercises for everybody. So we can all do something right. In fact, that's one thing that we can all attain to, make something good come out of this whole period. So again, I'm throwing you the challenge. Use the season as a catalyst for something, to create something positive, to create a positive change in your world. Okay, so number 2. So I've done number 1. Number 2 is keep up the momentum. In fact, sometimes if you depend on the audience I'm speaking to, you might hear me say press on. In fact, again, if you're somebody who goes through the Bible, you will see it talks about pressing on. Paul talked about forgetting the past, I press on. Now, this is a challenge sometimes for some of us, because what's the first thing you want to do when maybe you're going through a difficult time or a challenging time, or things are just not working out? What's the thing we want to do? Don't know about you, but if I'm having a bit of a day, I just want to go back in bed and maybe binge watch TV and just do nothing for a long time. But that's not the answer, okay? I might do it and it might help me just for a short period of time. However, I have to then put something in place. And sometimes when we're going through challenging times, you want to kind of hang up your boxing gloves and just do nothing. Now, doing nothing is not really an option for somebody who really wants to survive, thrive, and maximize challenging situations. You have to do something. In fact, by not doing anything, you are doing something. You've taken a decision not to take any action. So doing nothing is also actually taking action. You've decided you're not going to do anything about it. So, and when I say pressing on, this really has an impact, not just on what we're talking about here in terms of the COVID-19 climate, every area of your life. So, for example, you started a project and you didn't get the results you wanted. In fact, let's call it what it is. It failed. It failed woefully. And, sometimes, the easiest option may be to just leave it and think, oh, okay, you know what, I tried and it didn't work. But actually, no, you've tried one way of doing it, or maybe two ways or three ways. But when we have the likes of Thomas Edison, who tested the filament until he found that tungsten was the best thing for a light bulb, he kept going, and we were told he did it about 1,000 times, if not more. So, this is the time to keep that momentum going. Regardless of what you faced in the past, it's just saying, you know what, I'm going to press on. And so your mantra might just be #press on. I'm going to share that. #press on. Just keep going, one step at a time. You know what? I'm reading a powerful book at the moment called Atomic Habits. I'll share the link with you as soon as we finish this video. It's called Atomic Habits, and it's by a gentleman called, if memory serves me, it's James Clear. Powerful, powerful book. I mean, I thought I got my act together when it came to goals, but this guy took it another level, right? Now, he basically said sometimes, we have all these big goals. Okay, I want to go from a size 14 to a size 8. Great, fantastic. But then no action takes place to make that a reality. Or maybe you take intermittent action. So you do one thing once a week, another thing, 2 weeks later, and then you forget by week 4, and so on and so forth. He was saying that mindset or that approach to trying to achieve anything never works. But here's what he says: it's the small actions you take regularly that culminate into that big goal over time. It's the small actions you take regularly. So, okay, you might want to run a marathon, and that might be the goal, but how about just doing 1K around the garden? In fact, there was a guy, if you Google it, there was a guy who actually ran a marathon in his garden during the COVID time, basically just running around. And I can't remember how many, must be at least 1,000 times he had to go around, but you get the drift, right? It's the little things. So start with a goal. Okay, you know what? The end goal is running a marathon, maybe London Marathon, New York Marathon, Boston Marathon, whichever one. In fact, I want to do that too, okay? So I'm starting, but what you can do is this: start with 1K. In fact, forget the 1K, just start with walking and get used to getting out, whether it be your garden or within the guidelines of wherever you are in the world. We all have guidelines with the lockdown, okay? Within the guidelines, start with walking and then build that up to little, slightly fast-paced walking, and then build that into a jog. And then with the jog, don't try and run, 10 miles. Let's do 1K and then maybe 3K and then 4, and then when Park Run starts again, Google Park Run, maybe you can join some other people on a Saturday when we're allowed to do so. And you can do 3 or 5K, I can't remember. It's 5K, I think. Yeah, it's 5K. So I've done that once. It's really good. The atmosphere is fantastic. And just start small. But James Clear in Atomic Habits says it's the little things you do over time that makes the phenomenal difference. And that's why I'm saying to you, is making sure that you press on. So press on. That's number 2. And number 3, the last one I'm going to share with you today, is around seeking out new opportunities that this climate presents. Now, anyone who says there are no opportunities, you are walking around with blinkers. You're walking around blinkers. I said earlier on how a young girl, I think she was 8 or 9, decided to use her 3D printer at home to create personal protective equipment for her local hospital. Now, that's a business in itself, and her local hospital accepted that with joy, and that's it. So there are so many opportunities. Some of them, it could be financial benefits, some of them could be non-financial benefits, but there are so many opportunities that we can all use in spite of being locked down, in spite of unscripted life moments, in spite of the challenges we face. There is always an opportunity. But can you see the opportunity? Now, in the book, I came across in Bounce Back. And remember, I told you there's lots of stories in it. You can see I read my own book, right? I need to remember this myself. But I mentioned the story of a lady, and I'll use this to round off what we're talking about here today. I mentioned the story of a lady called Zoe Clark. Now, this lady married, and just like any married couple, we're looking to have children, and then nothing was happening. In her own words, the alarm clock was the biological clock. Alarm clock was ticking quite loudly, and she started to take action and wanted to have children, do all necessary things, but it wasn't happening. And then, I'm just going to fast track because you need to read her story. And, thankfully she wrote a really good narrative. I think I almost dedicated about a chapter in the book. Now, their story was just quite sad. It was miscarriage after miscarriage. They lost children all throughout the different stages, of the pregnancy. And, by the time I read her story, I'm like, what? Her and her husband went through hell and back, and, getting to a point where they thought, this is it, we're going to do it this time. And then all of a sudden having to have the wool pulled from underneath them and having to bury their child. And it was just so gut-wrenching. I was just, but through the grace of God and nothing else, they overcame that situation. And I said, I've left chunks out, but I want to get to a key point here. Through the grace of God, they managed to have children in the end. And I believe, if my memory serves me, they've got 2 gorgeous children, or it might be 3, I don't know, but they do have children. And they managed to get through all those heartaches of, that they went through, the miscarriages. Now, one of the things that they developed, and this is something that happens when you go through adversity. Remember, this is why I keep saying it's how you see the situation. They went through all that kind of, I'm going to call it serious drama, unscripted moments daily with that whole, situation. Now, because of that, they developed compassion for people who were in the same boat. Now, there is nothing better to give any one of us more empathy and compassion to other people than you having walked a mile in their shoes. Hopefully that makes sense. So basically, when you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, you get to understand where they're coming from. Now, them having gone through all that challenges and having to, all the drama with the hospital and whatnot, they decided they really wanted to help somebody out here. And you know what they did? There's a foundation that they actually started, and I believe it's called Saying Goodbye. And you can Google it, Zoe Clark. Now, they decided they were going to, because they wanted to support parents, be able to say goodbye to their children who they lose from any stage of the pregnancy. They started this foundation. And basically what Zoe and her husband did is created this phenomenal foundation, this charitable organization that allowed parents to say goodbye. It opened a forum. In fact, when I spoke to them, this is years ago, they were at that time, because they were the only kind of organization at that time, I think did she say they had 500,000 hits every month? Now, this a few years ago. That's a phenomenal amount of hits of people inquiring. And then they've kind of expanded that whole organization to support parents who are going through similar issues. Now, Zoe is a classic example of how you flip adversity on its head and make something good come out of a challenging situation. Now, was it easy for them during that time? Absolutely not. But they were determined that they are going to make something called positive change come out of their situation. In fact, in psychology terms, there's something called post-traumatic growth. Okay, so you've heard of post-traumatic trauma. So basically, when you go through challenges, you kind of exhibit certain tendencies around, that incident that happened. So, for example, if you had an accident, you might have flashbacks and a whole raft of other things that just really traumatizes you. Now, there is another concept called post-traumatic growth that allows people, not allows, that's the wrong word. It's whereby people are seen, despite the adversity that they've experienced, they've grown positively out of that experience. Now, Zoe's example is a classic example of that, where you have what we call post-traumatic growth. Now, my desire for you is despite all that's going on around us, and I do, having lost dear family members, I mentioned my younger sister, 2 years ago, my dad, I completely understand, with this current climate, that the chances are somebody's watching, knows somebody who's passed on, or they're, as a result of the, virus, and my heart goes out to you. And I hope and pray that God will give you the strength to bounce back and come back stronger than you ever before. And that really is my prayer for you. And so, just in closing this session today, I just want to encourage you to maximize this time. This is an unprecedented time. That's the only way I can describe it. It's a time where, on one hand, it's all that stuff going on outside. And by the way, I salute all the, the key workers, the frontline workers, all that NHS staff and all the staff working around the world, to just keep us all alive, basically. But I'm also putting the onus on you as a person. What are you going to do through this period so that when you come out on the other side, that you can say you've grown positively, you can say that you've pressed on, and you can say that you have sought out new opportunities to support you in dealing with this climate. So I'm hoping that you've gotten something out of it. By all means, share your questions, any comments. Now, in closing, I'm going to give you some homework. Yes, I said homework. I'm going to give you some homework with my writing, because I'm just naturally coaching. I just have that mode on all the time. Okay, so based on what we said today, here's what I'd like you to think about. It's not major, it's just something to reflect. I call it reflective exercises. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Think about how you have handled your own unscripted moments in the past. Okay, so things that have happened to you. I mentioned to you about my sister passing on. I also mentioned to you about her accident nearly 20 years ago. And in fact, my whole life is like just like a mishmash of these unscripted moments. So if you imagine these, going up and down, unscripted moments constantly, that's my life. And that's why, to be honest, I've written all these books, because they're as a result of my own unscripted moments. But looking back, I can always look back at those moments and think, well, we could have handled that better. You could have, it's not a negative thing, but I like to reflect. And I really do believe in the power of being self-aware. When you're self-aware, you can, it's just such a phenomenal thing to be able to do, to look at yourself and be able to objectively say, well, actually, probably wasn't a good idea, not a smart decision, bad choice, oh, that was really good. Oh, that's a really good mindset. You were able to, so it's about being self-aware. So I want you to think about your past unscripted moments, or we call them your challenges or your situations that you faced in the past. How have you dealt with them? Now, specifically, think about your attitudes, because sometimes we can come out of a situation bitter, angry, resentful, unforgiving, and a whole load of other things. What were your attitudes like? What were your belief systems like? Because sometimes, again, we can come out of that. We can come out of it fearful. We can come out of it, just seeing the world differently. Perhaps you might think, okay, you know what? You now start to see the cup half empty as opposed to half full. You're no longer optimistic. You're kind of like, so there's a whole raft of other things. Just take some time to just reflect on your own journey. Oh, excuse me. How have you actually dealt with this situation that you were facing in the past? Now think about it now. In the light of what you currently know, how would you deal with that differently? So it might be to do with a relationship. It might be to do with how you handle grief or disappointment or loss or whatever it is. Are there things to learn from those? In fact, they always say hindsight is 20/20. If you look back, you can see that there's been a change. In fact, I will be the first to own up to that. I remember when my dad passed away, I think it's in 2007, I felt a bit. There's just no if buts about it. There were some things I learned so much about myself. I didn't realize I had an issue with death. I didn't realize I had an issue with my dad. I didn't realize I had an issue with God. It's endless. Hence the book, Healing a Discouraged Heart. It was written for me. Drama. But anyway, I could, now that I'm self-aware, in fact, I decided, God forbid, if anything should happen again, I am not going to respond to the situation the way I responded to. And now I know this, grief affects us all in different ways, and that's so true. But there are some things that I knew I can control, and I decided I wasn't going to go through that. And so when my sister passed away, completely different approach altogether. And what they say, whatever you go through, sometimes adversity makes you stronger. And I think, in that situation, it kind of helped. It didn't help completely because obviously my sister still passed away. But I've learned from that experience. Now, over to you. What are you going to do to learn from your experiences so that you can come out stronger, better, wiser, smarter, and a whole raft of other things, as a result of this? And then number 2, here's your challenge for the second thing I want you to think about is, what's your strategy going to be for this season? So this lockdown season, we've been in it for a couple of weeks now. What is your strategy for yourself? What are you going to do to make positive change? What are you going to do to flip adversity on its head? How are you going to turn all of this around in a positive way? Now, by the way, I'm not saying, go and climb a mountain, go and do this, nothing major. For some people, it's just, I'm going to use this time to just rest and catch up with myself. And that's cool, because the video that I did, I think 2 weeks ago, was really about taking the pressure off. Don't get sidetracked in that I have to paint the house, cut the grass. Okay, you're gonna need to cut the grass at some point, okay? But put too much pressure on yourself to do all these DIY projects or whatever. For some of us, it's just a time of rest and reflection and just breathing out. So I'm hoping today was a really good session for you, that you got some nuggets out of it. As I said, a lot of it was shared from the book Bounce Back, How to Survive, Thrive and Maximize Challenging Life Situations. I'm going to put a link out there. You can get yourself a couple of the sample chapters that you can refer to. You can get some more nuggets out of it. And perhaps you can start your journey to bouncing back, staying well. And that means mentally and emotionally, and more importantly, developing resilience so that you can bounce back when life happens. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next week. The last episode is going to be on the 26th of May. So that's when I'm going to bring all of this to a wrap. But hopefully we'll have you joining us on some other things that we do in the future. Till then, stay well and stay safe. God bless you. Bye.